Today I want to talk to you about what a quarter-inch seam allowance is and how to obtain it, a few tools, tips and tricks. So when you are quilting and you're reading a pattern, if this is your first time, you might see that the seam allowance is a quarter-inch. What that means is that when you're sewing the pieces of fabric together, and this is just a simple 4-patch, the distance between the edge of your fabric and your stitches is exactly a quarter-inch. Now you will see sometimes it says that you need to stitch with a scant quarter-inch. So basically you will just be moving your needle, or you will be sewing one thread of fabric just a smidge closer to the edge of your fabric. So let's see some tools and let's see if this piece of fabric, if this block is accurate. So I have here, it's a Creative Grids ruler, and in most quilting rulers, you will see that they have a shaded area marked as a quarter-inch or a half-inch, depends on the seam allowance, and this is helpful. This, for example, is a 1.5-inch ruler, and as you can see, it has a little gritty area on the back. This helps it grip. This is what is specific to Creative Grids rulers, but what I like about it is that it's showing me that exact quarter-inch seam allowance. And this purple tool in my hand, I will show you a little bit later what it's used for as well. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place my ruler with, let's do with my stitch line on this square right here on the black dotted line, dashed line. And as you can see, this is a scant quarter-inch because it is still showing under here just a smidge of fabric, and that is okay. Another way to measure is I have turned these corners, and if you want a video to show you how to do this, please let me know. I'm going to measure this one as well. I'm putting this one on the seam, and as you can see, the stitches of fabric and the raw edge of the fabric line up. So this is a way that you can measure a quarter-inch seam allowance. Another way that you can measure to make sure that your squares are accurate is for you to start with the final measurement of your block. So say, for example, if I were to take this longer ruler and measure the entire block, the entire squares that I used, as you can see, these are 5-inch squares. All of them are going to measure 5-inch squares. Minus that quarter-inch as a seam allowance, that means if I flip this over, each of these squares is going to measure 4.75. So let's check. This is 4.75. So once I take another quarter-inch on this side, once I'm stitching it, then let me put the quarter-inch right there if it were to be cut, because this was 5 inches, all you're going to do is subtract 1/2 inch. So as you can see, my finished size of this square, discounting the quarter-inch seam allowance on all sides, is going to be 4.5 inches finished. That's what that means. Now this one is at 4 3/4 because I still have not sewn this entire block into the assembly of the quilt. So I still have that quarter-inch seam allowance all the way around, just like this. So I know that this block is accurate. So how do we get to that? Well, first and foremost, it's really difficult, not too difficult, but I find it challenging sometimes as you think that you're starting to learn how to sew, that stitching in a straight line is easy. Well, it's not. So practice stitching in a straight line. So you can use a ruler like this. I like to use the 6.5 by 1.5 inch ruler because it's very easy. I can grab it and quickly measure my stitches and my seam allowance with that. Another thing that is very helpful is for your sewing machine, if it has a quarter-inch foot, this is how you would measure it. So the quarter-inch foot is measured from where your needle is hitting, and usually 1/4 inch feet do not have that big space right here like a regular sewing machine foot would have. It has one tiny circle because this way your needle is not going to slip and slide. It gives you a more accurate stitch. So from the hole where the needle would hit until the edge of the foot, it's going to be 1/4 inch. So when you're sewing, if you're lining your fabric, let me do it on more colorful fabric so that you can see. If you're lining your fabric like that, and your needle will be right there, the distance between the center line and the edge of your foot is going to be 1/4 inch. So you can just continue stitching like that. So 1/4 inch feet are very helpful. I always quilt with it. Speaking of one small hole where your needle is not going to have room to play, my sewing machine came with this base plate. What this has, it will not allow me to do a zigzag because it has a tiny hole that the needle can go in and out without allowing it to slide sideways or to bend. And this way, it is more accurate in stitching a straight line and staying within that 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can also use on your sewing machine, as you can see, we have these markings here, 1/4 inch from this corner, from the center line. If I were to put that right there, it would be somewhere around here. So the bobbin would be here. On the bobbin case, it's labeled 1/4 inch, but I do not take that as very accurate. So for that, I like to use this 1/4 inch tape. So the way I use this, there are people who use it in several different ways, but I put this, if you do not get it tangled like me, I put this on the bed of my sewing machine, all right? And then, as you can see, I line up the red line with the center where my needle is going to hit. So if I'm stitching and I line up my fabric with a black line, you can see it through this white fabric that my needle is going to hit exactly where the red line is. So all I need to do when I'm sewing is just maintain my fabric with that black line and stitch it through the sewing machine. And we can move over to the sewing machine and I can show you how I apply this tape. Another tool that you can use to ensure you have a 1/4 inch is literally this. It's called that purple thing. And I really like it because I can use it as a stiletto to help me guide the fabric. Or right here at the edge, it has a 1/4 inch square. It is a very quick and easy way. Just place it on your fabric and you can easily check your 1/4 inch. This is for people who are not too precise, who do not want to be that exact. Another thing that I like to use is the Sew Standard Seam Guide by It's Sew Emma. So I will get my foot, place this under the foot. As you can see, it has those tiny holes, and that's where the needle is going to go. You are not going to sew through this, but you are going to guide this to make sure that your 1/4 inch seam allowance is accurate. And if you have a needle that you can move left and right, it'll help you move it. So you're going to place this exactly where your needle is going to hit. And as you can see, the edge of my presser foot is the edge of the ruler, and that is one way to verify. If you do not have a 1/4 inch foot and you have a regular foot, then you can use a little bit of tape to help you mark on the sewing machine bed how that seam allowance should be. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, and let's move over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how this works. So here we are at the sewing machine, and I'm going to demonstrate on these 2 strips of fabric. We'll worry about that later, but this is the standard foot that comes with my machine. I have a FOF Performance Icon, so it has a large throat space. I think it's about 11 inches. And I have a Sew Steady extension table to it. So this is the regular base plate. As you can see, other than some thread, it has a wide opening here. So this allows the needle to go left and right in order to do zigzag or any other specialty stitches. But also the foot itself also has this wide opening to allow that. Well, this machine has a sensor, so what's going to happen is if I have the wrong base plate on or the wrong presser foot on, is going to tell me that I do have the wrong one. So for example, if I have this presser foot on or this base plate with a small hole in there, my machine is going to tell me that I have the wrong ones if I have selected a zigzag stitch so the needle doesn't hit the plate. So I really like that feature. Now let's talk about using just a regular standard foot and how to measure a 1/4 inch. So as we were talking about the Sew Standard seam guide, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the 1/4 inch right there, and I'm going to slowly lower my needle until I get to that 1/4 inch. And this is something that you can actually do with your presser foot off, and hopefully you get a better view there. So there's that. What I like to do is when this happens, as you can see, there is a 1/4 inch mark right here on the bobbin cover, but this is a piece of plastic and it kind of moves, so it will not be that accurate for me to follow. So there's the needle in. What I can do is just grab a little bit of washi tape. So I'll just use this one because I have it handy, but you can use any kind of washi tape, and you can put it on the bed of your machine while holding that straight, and you can use this to guide your fabric. And a trick, if you want to make like a little ledge, you can layer several pieces of this washi tape so it creates a little bit of a ledge that your fabric will bump into as you're trying to sew. So that is one way that you can do it. Once you have put that tape down, just put your presser foot on and continue sewing. So let me put my presser foot back on, and let's use this tape. So I told you I use this tape by, I use this tape by following the red line. So what I do, I like to kind of eyeball it, put it down until my needle hits the red line, and then I gently pick it up and I make sure that it is straight, so parallel to all the lines on my machine. As you can see, my sticker from the Sew Steady table also has that 1/4 inch mark, and you can kind of see some of the glue that I've had from old tape here, but I'm just trying to line it up like that. Lift the needle back up, and then what I can do is right here I can just tear the tape, and this way, if I can find my scissors here, I'll use a used sewing machine needle to score that gently. I don't want this tape to be on my presser feet. That would not be a good day. But when I'm sewing now, I know that my needle is going to hit on this red line, so I'm going to put my fabrics together. Of course, there is no thread in my machine because I haven't used it in a while, and I'm lining my fabric up. So I'm putting the presser foot down and needle down, and I can start stitching that way. Next, the next tool that we have is going to be the ruler, and this is a very similar way that you can use it. You can just gently see where your needle is going to hit, and then you can add that tape on the edge just as a marker. Some sewing machines have these little holes that come with a seam guide, or you can use a magnetic seam guide. I do not like to use one. They are so strong that I am having trouble with them coming off. I just don't use the magnetic one, and I don't know if it affects a computerized sewing machine. So my little sewing machine, it's actually a pretty big one, has a quick access to disconnect this, so I'll just pop it up like that, and I will change it. It just presses down. I will put this back on, and as soon as I put some thread in it, we can start sewing. What I like about the sewing machine is the automatic needle threader. I will just push my needle threader button and it threads it for me. It's very convenient. All right, using the base plate that has one tiny hole, I'm also going to switch to my 1/4 inch foot. And we verified that the hole in the 1/4 inch foot and the edge of the foot is accurate. So I'm going to take my fabrics, move these out of the way. This So Steady extension table really does give me lots of space. So what I like to do is lower my presser foot, and if I press on the lowering presser foot again, it raises it just a little bit to give me some space. Put it back down, and I will just press this button. Let me make sure I'm not going at extreme speed. And it starts sewing. All right, let's cut that thread. And now we can verify. We can check our seam allowance. I'm using that purple thing, and that is good. Let me use the ruler as well. And that is also good. So that is how you would find a 1/4 inch and ensure that you have an accurate one. You can use tape, you can use a ruler, you can use a purple thing, a 1/4 inch foot, a straight stitch base plate, and a So Standard seam guide. If you have any other tips and tricks, please let me know, and I will see you next time.